The Galactic Council chamber was silent, the kind of silence that carried weight. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in their high seats, their faces tight with fear. Outside, a war raged across the stars. The largest empire in the galaxy, the Zorath Dominion, was crushing world after world. No fleet could stop them, no treaty could calm them. For weeks, reports had come in. Another planet destroyed, another people enslaved. The galaxy's minor powers whispered among themselves, "Nothing can stop the Dominion. They are gods of war." But on this day, a strange report reached the Council. A small scout fleet had returned from the Outer Rim. They had seen something unusual, ships that did not belong to any known empire. The Council's speaker leaned forward. His voice shook. "Describe these ships." The alien captain replied, "They were human, but not the humans we know." Gasps filled the chamber. Humanity was not unknown. The galaxy had seen colonies of humans before, scattered, divided, unremarkable. But these ships looked different. Their hulls were sharp, dark, and bristling with weapons. Their engines burned with a fire no one had seen before. The captain hesitated, then said the words that changed everything. They called themselves Americans. The Council laughed at first. What difference could one human nation make? They had no record of Americans in their databases. Just another group of humans, no doubt weaker than the rest. But then the war shifted. On the edge of Dominion space, an entire invasion fleet prepared to strike a defenseless colony. The Dominion's ships numbered in the hundreds. They expected no resistance. But as they advanced, space itself seemed to ripple. From the black void, new ships appeared, sleek, massive, and silent. They moved like predators in the dark. At the lead was a colossal vessel, its metal hull shining with strange markings. Its name burned across its side, USS Washington. The Dominion laughed overcomes. "Humans, you dare bring scraps of metal into our war?" The American commander's reply was calm, steady, and cold. "This is United States Naval Command. You will not touch this colony. Turn back now, or you will learn what happens when you cross us." The Dominion admiral smirked. "You cannot threaten us. We are gods of this galaxy." The American's voice hardened. "We have fought those who thought themselves gods before, and they bled." Then the first shot was fired. The Dominion unleashed a storm of plasma fire. The sky burned with light as hundreds of cannons roared. Any normal fleet would have been torn apart. But the Americans were not normal. Their ships moved with impossible precision. Plasma beams bent away as electronic warfare systems scrambled enemy targeting. Missiles launched in perfect silence, vanishing into the void before striking with thunderous explosions. The first Dominion ship split apart in flames, then another, and another. The galaxy had never seen combat like this. The Americans fought with strategies that made no sense to alien minds. They turned weakness into traps, chaos into order. Every shot was calculated, every maneuver planned. Within minutes, the Dominion fleet realized the truth. They were not hunting prey. They were being hunted on the ground below. Colonists looked up at the sky. At first, they had prepared for death, waiting for Dominion fire to rain down. But instead, they saw a miracle. Strange human ships fought, with fire and fury standing between them and annihilation. Children pointed at the burning trails in the sky. "Who are they?" One whispered. An old colonist answered, his voice trembling. "Americans." Back in the Galactic Council, more reports flooded in. The Dominion fleet has been destroyed. By humans. By the Americans. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Impossible. No single human nation could fight the Dominion. But the data was undeniable. Wreckage from Dominion ships drifted through space. The colony was safe. And the Americans, they were just beginning. In the command room of the USS Washington, Admiral Hayes studied the tactical maps. His officers reported victory, but Hayes's face remained stern. "This was only a scouting fleet," he said. "The Dominion will send more, bigger fleets, stronger weapons." A young officer asked, "Sir, what should we do?" Hayes's eyes hardened. "What we've always done. We fight, we protect, and we show them why humanity survives when others fall." The Dominion's emperor, furious at the loss, called for vengeance. "Crush these humans, tear their ships apart, show the galaxy no one defies us." But in the shadows, whispers began. Across alien worlds, small species who lived in fear now spoke of hope. The Americans fought the Dominion and won. Maybe they can fight for us too. For the first time in generations, the galaxy's gods of war had been wounded, and the wound had been given by humans. Asterisk, the destruction of the Dominion's fleet echoed across the galaxy like thunder. News traveled fast, faster than light relays, faster than silence could contain. Entire systems whispered the same phrase: "The Americans are here." No one knew where they had come from. No one knew how they had built ships so advanced in secret. But everyone knew one thing: the Dominion, the so-called gods of war, had been defeated by humans no one had seen before. The galaxy struggled to understand. The Americans were not the largest human power, not the oldest, not even the most famous. Yet somehow, their arrival had changed everything. On their flagship, the USS Washington, Admiral Hayes stood over the holly. The stars burned like tiny flames around him, each one a system under threat. His officers watched him carefully, waiting for his orders. "Admiral," a young lieutenant said, "we won the first battle. But how? How did we win against a fleet 3 times our size?" Hayes looked at the officer and gave a grim smile. "Because we were ready. We've been ready for years." He turned to the holly table, pressing a switch. The room flickered with images: shipyards hidden under ice moons, factories buried inside asteroids, training camps on forgotten colonies. While the galaxy ignored Earth, America had been building. Quietly, patiently, preparing for the day they would be needed. "We knew this day would come," Hayes said. "We knew there would be a time when someone thought themselves untouchable. So, we prepared to show them what happens when you underestimate us." The council, far away, argued endlessly. "They cannot be allowed to grow stronger," shouted an alien warlord. "If one American fleet can destroy the Dominion, what happens? If their whole nation arrives?" Another alien senator whispered, Perhaps we should ally with them. Better to stand beside the Americans than against them." The chamber split in two, fear on one side, hope on the other. For the first time in ages, the galaxy's most powerful leaders were uncertain. Meanwhile, across the Dominion, panic spread. The Emperor ordered spies, assassins, and fleets to track the Americans. His commanders studied the wreckage of their lost ships, searching for answers. "Where did these weapons come from?" one demanded. The engineers shook their heads. "We cannot understand it. Their missiles move like ghosts. Their armor bends our plasma beams. Their computers jam even our strongest systems. It is as if they have been fighting a war we never saw." The truth was simple. The Americans had been fighting wars for centuries. Of survival, wars of strategy, wars where losing was never an option. On smaller worlds, people began to whisper in secret. Farmers in distant colonies told their children stories. The Americans came. They fought the Dominion, and they won. Slaves on Dominion-controlled worlds looked to the stars and prayed, maybe they will come for us too. The Americans had become more than soldiers. They had become a symbol. On the Washington's bridge, Admiral Hayes received a new transmission. A nearby colony was under attack. The Dominion was striking again, desperate to prove their strength. Set course, Hayes ordered. We'll show them the first battle was not luck. The fleet jumped. Space rippled, and within minutes, the Americans were there. The Dominion fleet was already in orbit, firing on the planet below. Civilians screamed, their cities burning. But before the fire could consume them, American warships dropped from the void. This time there was no warning, no speech. The Americans attacked with deadly precision. Stealth bombers uncloaked in the middle of enemy formations, dropping payloads that split battleships in half. Electronic jamming blinded enemy sensors, turning their weapons against their own allies. Missiles cut through the sky like falling stars, each one striking its target with perfect accuracy. The Dominion tried to regroup, but every move was predicted, every tactic countered. It was like fighting an enemy who knew their thoughts before they spoke them. Within an hour, the Dominion's fleet was gone. Not defeated, slowly not fought to a standstill gone. The galaxy could not believe it. 2 victories in a row. 2 impossible battles turned to dust. On the Council worlds, silence filled the chambers. If this continues, one alien said softly, the Dominion will fall, and the Americans will rise. But another senator whispered the most dangerous thought of all. If these Americans are only part of humanity, what happens when the rest arrive? Back aboard the Washington, Admiral Hayes looked at the stars once more. His crew celebrated their victory, but Hayes remained serious. This is only the beginning, he said quietly. The Dominion will not stop. They will come with everything they have. And when they do, we will be ready. His words carried weight, not only for his crew, but for the galaxy itself. For the Americans had shown their power, and in doing so, had revealed a truth the galaxy could no longer ignore. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not divided, and humanity had only just begun. The Dominion was wounded, but not broken. Their fleets had been shattered twice, their pride humiliated, but their empire stretched across 1,000 worlds. To them, the Americans were a threat, yes, but a threat that could be crushed with overwhelming force, at least. That was what they told themselves. Across the galaxy, whispers spread faster than light. The Americans had won again. 2 battles, impossible victories, against the strongest warlords in existence. Colonies once resigned to slavery now spoke of hope. Small races that had lived in silence for centuries began to ask the same question. If the Americans can fight, why can't we? On the Dominion's throne world, the Emperor raged. He stood before his warlords, his voice echoing through the dark chamber. They are only humans, a single nation from a single world. How dare they defy us? One commander bowed. Your Excellency, we underestimated them. Their weapons, their tactics. Silence, the Emperor thundered. I want every resource, every ship, every weapon we have. Break their fleets, burn their colonies. Show the galaxy that the Dominion is eternal. His words were sharp, but behind them even he felt fear. Meanwhile, the Americans moved with purpose. The USS Washington led a growing fleet, joined now by cruisers, destroyers, and stealth frigates. They had allies, two not powerful empires, but small colonies that had secretly sent scouts, merchants, even volunteers. Admiral Hayes knew what it meant. The Americans were becoming more than just soldiers. They were becoming a symbol. On the bridge, Hayes studied the latest reports. Another world has fallen, his officer said. The Dominion is crushing resistance on the rim. Civilians are being slaughtered. Hayes's jaw tightened. Set course. We don't wait for invitations. If they can't fight for themselves, we'll fight for them. The next battle came quickly. A small alien colony was under siege, its skies burning as Dominion warships rained fire from above. Civilians fled into caves, praying to survive the night. And then, out of the dark, American ships arrived. The Dominion expected another small skirmish, but the Americans came with precision and fury. Stealth ships uncloaked inside enemy formations, cutting battleships apart with railgun blasts. Fighter swarms zipped between heavy cruisers, tearing engines apart before the aliens could react. The colony's people watched from the surface, their terror turning into awe. For the first time in generations, someone was fighting for them, not for conquest, not for tribute, but to protect. The Americans, they whispered, they fight for us. Word of the victory spread like wildfire. Across the stars, slaves rose up against their masters, inspired by the Americans' defiance. Small militias attacked Dominion outposts, emboldened by the thought that the gods of war could bleed. The galaxy was changing. The tide was turning, but the Dominion was not idle in a hidden fortress. Deep inside their empire, scientists worked on something terrible. They had studied every piece of wreckage, every scrap of data, every weapon the Americans had used, and, in secret, they built their answer, the Annihilator, a warship the size of a moon. Armed with weapons capable of tearing entire fleets apart. When the Emperor saw it, his lips curled into a cruel smile. Let them come. This time, the Americans will know fear. Back on the USS Washington, Hayes sensed the storm coming. He met with his officers in the strategy chamber. The Dominion is changing tactics, he said. They'll unleash something new, something desperate. Commander Lin, his second in command, frowned. Do you think they can overpower us? Hayes shook his head. Not overpower. Surprise. They know brute force hasn't worked. They'll try to break us with fear. But fear doesn't work on us. We've been through worse. He turned to the star map, his eyes cold. When they come, we won't run. We'll meet them head-on, and we'll show them what it means to fight America. Meanwhile, on distant worlds, alien leaders grew restless. Some wanted to ally with the Americans to ride this rising wave of power. Others wanted to destroy them before they became unstoppable. But one thing was certain. No one could ignore them anymore. An old alien scholar said it best. Before the Americans, the galaxy believed that Dominion was eternal, but eternity has cracks now, and those cracks are spreading. The next message shocked everyone. Dominion ships were massing in a system near the core of their empire. Hundreds of vessels, more than had ever been seen together in one place. It was bait, a trap, a declaration of war. The Americans knew it. Admiral Hayes knew it. But still, he gave the order, prepare the fleet. If they want a war, we'll bring it to their doorstep. The galaxy was no longer the same. Once, the Dominion had been untouchable. Their fleets roamed freely. Their enemies bowed in silence, and no one dared to resist. But now, in every marketplace, every outpost, every hidden corner of space, people spoke the same name with awe and fear. The Americans. They had defeated fleet after fleet. They had defended the weak. They had shown that the Dominion could be hurt, and that truth was spreading like fire through dry grass. In the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Alien leaders argued in chaos. They are dangerous. One warlord shouted, "If the Americans grow stronger, they will replace the Dominion. They will rule the galaxy." Another alien slammed his clawed hand on the table. "And is that worse than the Dominion? At least the Americans fight for others. At least they protect." The chamber erupted with shouts. Some wanted to ally with the Americans. Others demanded they be destroyed before they grew unstoppable. But in the middle of the shouting, one quiet voice rose. A scholar, older than most of the council members, spoke softly. "History has changed. You cannot stop it. The Americans have already begun to rewrite the galaxy. The more you resist, the stronger their legend will grow." The chamber fell silent. They all knew he was right. On the throne world of the Dominion, the Emperor seethed. "Americans turn our slaves into rebels," he snarled. "They turn weak races into warriors. Enough, release the weapon." In the darkness of the great hangar, the Annihilator stirred. A warship larger than a moon, bristling with cannons that could tear planets apart, powered by reactors stolen from dying stars. It was the Dominion's answer to the Americans, and it was ready. Meanwhile, aboard the USS Washington, Admiral Hayes stood on the command deck. Reports poured in from across the stars. "Another colony has risen against the Dominion. Rebels are using our battle footage as propaganda. Smaller races are asking for alliances." Commander Lin looked at Hayes. "We're inspiring them. We're changing the galaxy." Hayes nodded. "That's the problem." The bridge crew looked at him in shock. "Problem, sir." Hayes's voice was grim. "The Dominion won't allow this to continue. They're going to throw everything they have at us. And when they do, it won't just be us at risk. Every world that dares to hope will burn if we fail." Far across the galaxy, rebellions exploded. On the mining world of slaves rose with stolen tools, chanting the word Americans as a battle cry. On the ice moon of Thren, children painted Starzan stripes, symbols on the walls, though they had never seen Earth. To them, it was not a flag, it was a promise. The Americans had become more than a nation. They had become a myth. The Dominion knew this too. That was why the Annihilator had been built. On the bridge of the monstrous warship, Dominion generals prepared for battle. Its cannons glowed with energy that could split planets. Its shields bent space itself, and its engines roared like thunder. "This is no longer war," one general said. "This is extermination. We will burn their legend out of existence." The Emperor's reply was cold. "Do not just kill them. Destroy their hope." Back with the Americans, Daron Lasker, young student who had joined their fleet as an observer, watched the rising tide of war. He had seen the Americans fight. He had seen their courage, their humor even in darkness, their refusal to bow. And he knew one thing. If the Annihilator destroyed them, the galaxy's hope would die with them. One night, standing on the observation deck of the Washington, Daron spoke to Admiral Hayes. "Sir, do you think we can win against something that—" Big Hayes stared into the stars. "We don't choose our fights, son. We fight because someone has to. And as long as there's one American ship left standing, The galaxy will know humanity never bows. Soon, scouts brought word. The Dominion fleet is massing, thousands of ships, and at their center, the officer's voice shook. A warship the size of a moon. The bridge fell silent. Even seasoned officers felt the weight of those words. Commander Lin whispered, "The Annihilator." Admiral Hayes stood tall. "Then that's where we go. If the Dominion wants a final battle, we'll give them one." Across the stars, colonies held their breath. The Council froze in fear. The Dominion prepared their monster, and the Americans set course for the greatest battle the galaxy had ever seen. Asterisk, the stars burned with the light of gathering fleets in the heart of the Dominion. Thousands of warships assembled. They stretched across the system like a wall of fire, their weapons ready, their engines roaring. At their center loomed the monster itself, Annihilator. It was larger than any ship the galaxy had ever seen. Its cannons glowed with stolen energy from dying stars. Its shields bent light and space. To the Dominion, it was not just a weapon. It was their salvation, their answer to the Americans and waiting beyond the void. The American fleet prepared for battle. On the USS Washington, Admiral Hayes stood at the command deck. His officers watched him in silence, each one knowing what was at stake. If they failed today, the Americans would be crushed, and with them the galaxy's last hope. Hayes spoke quietly, his voice carrying through the ship. The Dominion believes fear wins wars. They believe one monster ship can erase everything we've built. They're wrong. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every free world. Today, we show them humanity does not bow. A cheer rose from the crew. The Americans were ready. The battle began. Dominion ships surged forward in endless waves. Plasma fire lit up the darkness, turning space into a storm of light. The Americans answered with precision. Stealth bombers uncloaked in the middle of enemy formations, tearing destroyers apart. Railguns roared, firing slugs that punched holes through cruisers. Missiles streaked like falling stars, finding their marks with perfect accuracy. But the Annihilator moved at last. Its main cannon fired, a beam of burning energy that carved through the void. One American battleship was split in two instantly, its wreckage scattering into the stars. Fear rippled through the fleet. Hayes clenched his fists. "Focus fire, bring it down." The Americans struck with everything they had. Hundreds of missiles slammed into the Annihilator's shields. Railguns pounded its armor. The void shook with explosions. But the monster ship endured. Its shields bent the attacks away. Its cannons fired again, destroying another American cruiser. Commander Lin shouted, "We can't hold. Its weapons are too strong." But Hayes's voice cut through the panic. "We don't break. Not today. Not ever." He activated a secure channel. "Prepare the gambit." The officers froze. The gambit was their most dangerous planner strike. That could destroy the Annihilator, but only at great risk. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, billions watched the battle through stolen transmissions. On rebel worlds, slaves huddled around screens. On council planets, leaders held their breath. Everyone knew this was the turning point. If the Americans fell, the Dominion would crush all resistance. But if they won, the galaxy would never be the same. The gambit began. Dozens of stealth frigates broke away from the main fleet, vanishing into the dark. While the Washington and the battleships drew the Annihilator's fire, the frigates slipped behind enemy lines. Their mission, disabled the monster's shield generators hidden in its hull. The Dominion noticed too late. Explosions ripped across the Annihilator's surface as the frigates struck. For the first time, the monster's shield flickered. Now, Hayes shouted. The entire American fleet fired as one. Railguns, missiles, cannons, all of it aimed at the same spot. The Annihilator's armor cracked, its surface burning with fire. The galaxy roared in hope, but the Dominion refused to fall quietly. The Annihilator's engines flared, and it charged forward, aiming directly at the Washington's main cannon. Powered up, a beam of destruction that could end the flagship in one shot. On the bridge, alarms blared. Officers shouted warnings. But Hayes stood calm, his eyes locked on the enemy. "Bring us in closer," he ordered. Commander Lin stared in. Disbelief. "Closer, sir." Hayes nodded. "We're ending this." Today, the Washington charged. The Dominion's fleet screamed in confusion as the American flagship dove straight at the Annihilator, weaving between beams of fire. The monster's cannon fired, missing by only meters, the heat shaking the entire ship. "Target their core," Hayes said. The Washington's main railgun charged, its barrel glowing white. The crew held their breath. Then, with a thunderous blast, it fired. The slug punched through the Annihilator's cracked armor, tearing into its heart. For a moment, silence. Then the monster ship erupted, fire and debris spilling into the void. Like a dying sun, the Annihilator was gone. The Dominion fleet broke. Without their monster, without their pride, they scattered in panic. The Americans pressed forward, driving them into retreat. The battle was over. On rebel worlds, cheers shook the skies. Slaves danced in the streets. Colonies wept with joy. Across the galaxy, one truth spread. The Americans had won, back aboard the Washington. Admiral Hayes looked at the burning wreckage of the Annihilator. His officers cheered, but Hayes remained solemn. "This is not the end," he said. "The Dominion still has worlds, still has fleets. But today the galaxy has changed. They know now humanity cannot be broken." Daron Lask, standing nearby, whispered, "And then came the Americans, and the galaxy was never the same." Hayes allowed himself the smallest of smiles. "No, it never will be,"